February 16, 2026. TMZ receives a message that changes everything. Not another ransom demand, not another Bitcoin wallet, something far more specific, far more disturbing. The sender claims they personally saw Nancy Guthrie alive 5 days earlier, and they claim she was south of the border, in Mexico. The note reads, "I know what I saw 5 days ago south of the border, and I was told to shut up, so I know who he is, and that was definitely Nancy with them." More than one person involved. The same Bitcoin account that sent 3 previous ransom notes. But this time, no demand for millions, just information, and a warning to the FBI to pay attention before it's too late. For 17 days, investigators told the public they were tracking every lead. They said Nancy Guthrie's case was their absolute top priority, but there was one angle they weren't discussing openly. One possibility that changes the entire investigation. Because if Nancy Guthrie was taken across the international border into Mexico, this is no longer just a kidnapping case. This is now an international incident involving a foreign country where kidnapping is the third most common crime after drug trafficking and homicide, where American citizens vanish every year and are never seen again, where the cartels operate with impunity and local law enforcement is often powerless or complicit, and where an 84-year-old woman with limited mobility and a pacemaker that requires daily monitoring would not survive long without help. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was not a random target. The evidence has suggested that from the beginning. She was 84 years old living alone in a secluded home in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, the same home she had occupied for over 50 years. Her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television. Nancy had appeared on the program multiple times over the years, seated beside her famous daughter, smiling for cameras, known to millions of viewers across the country. But Nancy's life was defined by more than her daughter's celebrity. In 1988, her husband Charles died suddenly of a heart attack during a mining exploration trip to Mexico. He was 49 years old. Nancy was 46. Their youngest child, Savannah, was just 16, about to start her senior year of high school. Nancy raised all 3 of her children alone after that. She worked for the University of Arizona, serving as a spokeswoman for University Medical Center and later as an associate to the vice president of university advancement. Colleagues described her as someone who made work upbeat and fun, a natural leader, a person of integrity. By 2026, Nancy had been retired for nearly 2 decades. She was deeply religious, a devoted churchgoer who never missed services. She had limited mobility and required daily cardiac medication. She had a pacemaker synced to her Apple Watch. And according to everyone who knew her, she was mentally sharp as a tack. The Pima County Sheriff later confirmed she could not have walked 50 yards by herself, but she had no cognitive impairments whatsoever. She was not confused, she simply could not have left that house on her own, which means someone took her by force. The timeline of Nancy Guthrie's final night of freedom is disturbingly precise. On the evening of January 31, 2026, Nancy attended a family dinner at her daughter Annie's home in Tucson. They played games together. They spent quality time as a family that had always remained close. At approximately 9:45 p.m., Nancy was dropped off at her own home in the Catalina Foothills. Her family watched her go inside safely. They had absolutely no reason to suspect anything was wrong. That was the last time anyone saw Nancy Guthrie alive and safe. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, Nancy's doorbell camera disconnected. At the time, investigators did not understand why. At 2:12 a.m., the camera's software detected a person on the property, but no video was available because the device had been disabled. At approximately 2:00 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker stopped syncing with her Apple devices. The signal simply vanished. For the next 10 hours, Nancy Guthrie's house sat in complete silence. At 11:56 a.m., relatives arrived at the home. Nancy had failed to show up to watch an online church service at a friend's house. This was completely out of character. Nancy never missed church, ever. They found the front door propped open. They found blood on the front porch. They found Nancy's wallet and vehicle still at the residence. At 12:03 p.m., the family called 911. And within hours, the Pima County Sheriff's Department understood they were not dealing with a standard missing person case. They were dealing with a violent kidnapping or something worse. When investigators processed Nancy's home, what they discovered was deeply disturbing. There were signs someone had deliberately tampered with her doorbell camera. There was blood on the front porch, later confirmed through DNA analysis to belong to Nancy. But for 9 agonizing days, that was all the public knew. The footage from the doorbell camera was supposedly inaccessible. Investigators claimed they could not recover it. Then on February 10th, everything changed. FBI Director Kash Patel released 4 black and white images on social media. They showed a figure approaching Nancy Guthrie's front door on the night she disappeared. The figure was wearing a ski mask, tactical gloves, and carrying a backpack. There was a firearm in a holster positioned at his waist. The FBI had successfully recovered the footage after all. The intruder had attempted to disable the camera completely, but he had not succeeded. Data from the device's buffer memory had been preserved by the physical disconnection. Later that same day, the FBI released 2 video clips captured by the doorbell system. They showed the masked individual placing his gloved hand directly over the camera lens. They showed him positioning plants from Nancy's garden in front of the camera to block the view. They showed him lingering at the front door in complete darkness. The footage was timestamped at approximately 1:47 a.m., the exact moment the camera disconnected. 2 days later, the FBI released additional details about the suspect's physical appearance. Based on careful analysis of the recovered footage, they estimated his height at 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches. Average build, wearing all black. He was carrying a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack backpack, a private label brand sold exclusively at Walmart stores. For the first time, investigators had a detailed physical description of the man who took Nancy Guthrie, but they still did not know his identity, and they still did not know where Nancy had been taken. But they were about to receive information that would dramatically expand the geographic scope of their search. The ransom notes began arriving within days of Nancy's disappearance. The first note was sent to KOLD TV, a CBS affiliate in Tucson, on February 3rd. It demanded payment for Nancy's safe release. It included specific details about her home and what she was wearing the night she disappeared. Investigators asked that its contents not be publicly disclosed to protect the integrity of the investigation. The same day, TMZ reported receiving an alleged ransom note demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin cryptocurrency. The note included a specific Bitcoin wallet address and a firm deadline for payment. Investigators took the communication seriously. The details were far too specific to dismiss as a hoax. One note mentioned a damaged floodlight fixture outside Nancy's home. Another referenced an Apple Watch that Nancy was believed to have been wearing that night. But there was a significant problem developing. Multiple ransom notes were arriving from potentially different sources, and at least one of them was confirmed to be a complete fabrication. On February 5th, a 42-year-old California man named Derek Calella was arrested on federal extortion charges. Prosecutors alleged he had posed as Nancy's abductor and demanded ransom payments from the Guthrie family through text messages and a brief phone call. He had absolutely no connection to Nancy's actual disappearance. He was simply an opportunistic criminal exploiting a family in crisis for financial gain. The Guthrie family released an emotional video statement on February 7th. Savannah Guthrie, seated between her siblings Annie and Cameron, addressed whoever might be holding their mother. Savannah said they had received the messages and that they understood the situation. She begged the captors to return their mother so the family could celebrate with her again. She said that was the only way any of them would have peace. She emphasized that resolving this matter was extremely valuable to the family and that they were prepared to pay whatever was demanded. The family was publicly offering to pay the ransom, but they needed proof that their mother was still alive. That proof never came. One ransom deadline passed at 5:00 p.m. on February 5th with no contact. A second deadline passed on February 9th in complete silence. The demanded $6 million in Bitcoin was never transferred. And Nancy Guthrie remained missing. Then came the fourth communication. On February 16th, TMZ reported receiving another message from someone claiming direct knowledge of Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts. This note was fundamentally different from all the others. The sender claimed they had personally seen Nancy Guthrie alive just 5 days earlier, south of the border in Mexico. The exact wording of the note was chilling. "I know what I saw 5 days ago south of the border, and I was told to shut up so I know who he is, and that was definitely Nancy with them." The note explicitly stated that more than one person was involved in the abduction, and it was sent using the exact same Bitcoin account as the 3 previous alleged ransom communications. Harvey Levin reported the development on TMZ. The note claimed Nancy had been taken across the international border into Mexico and that the author personally knew the identity of her abductor or abductors. The author was offering this information in exchange for payment, but there was a complication preventing direct contact with law enforcement. The author stated they had a burglary conviction from 10 years earlier and that this criminal record was preventing them from coming forward to the FBI directly without risking arrest. Levin offered to serve as an intermediary between the note's author and federal investigators. He urged the author to provide verifiable proof that the FBI could independently confirm. Levin said directly, "If this really is legitimate, send us the information and we will pass it on to the FBI immediately." As of today, no verification has been provided by the note's author. The Mexico claim remains completely unconfirmed by any law enforcement agency. Nancy Guthrie's location is still unknown, but the possibility that she was taken into Mexico has enormous implications for this investigation. Mexico recorded over 25,000 kidnappings in 2025 alone, making it one of the highest kidnapping rates in the world. The state of Sonora, which borders Arizona directly south of Tucson, has seen a dramatic increase in cartel activity and cross-border crime in recent years. If Nancy was taken into Mexico, the FBI's jurisdiction becomes significantly more complicated. They would need cooperation from Mexican federal authorities. They would need to coordinate with Interpol. And they would be operating in territory controlled by criminal organizations that have no respect for international law. Former ATF agents and border security experts have noted that getting someone across the border from Arizona into Mexico is far easier than most Americans realize. While security is tight for people entering the United States from Mexico, the opposite direction receives far less scrutiny. Thousands of vehicles cross south into Mexico every single day with minimal inspection. An 84-year-old woman could be hidden in a vehicle, incapacitated, possibly unconscious, and driven across without raising immediate suspicion, especially if the crossing occurred at night or during high-traffic periods when inspections are cursory at best. But there are significant problems with the Mexico theory that investigators cannot ignore. Nancy Guthrie requires daily cardiac medication to survive. She has a pacemaker that needs professional monitoring. She has extremely limited mobility and cannot walk without assistance. Keeping her alive in Mexico for over 2 weeks would require medical supplies, medications, and continuous care. That level of planning suggests this was not a spontaneous crime. It suggests whoever took Nancy had prepared for a long-term captivity scenario. It suggests resources, infrastructure, and possibly organizational backing. The investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has mobilized one of the largest law enforcement operations in Arizona history. The Pima County Sheriff's Department is leading the case with extensive assistance from the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and multiple specialized search and rescue teams. Hundreds of detectives and federal agents have been assigned to the investigation. A 24-hour command center has been established where dozens of personnel process tips flooding in from the public. Those tips now number between 40,000 and 50,000. The FBI increased its reward to $100,000 for information leading to Nancy's recovery or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in her disappearance. On February 13th, a SWAT team and FBI agents executed a search warrant at a residence in the Catalina Foothills, approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home. Multiple individuals were detained for questioning. A vehicle was towed from the scene for forensic processing. No arrests were made. Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed that no sign of Nancy was found during the operation. 2 days later, investigators recovered a pair of black gloves during a roadside search about 2 miles from Nancy's home. The gloves appeared to visually match the ones worn by the suspect in the doorbell camera footage. DNA was successfully extracted from the gloves. The genetic profile indicated an unknown male. The sample was submitted to CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database containing approximately 22 million criminal profiles. There was no match. The suspect's DNA is not in any federal database. Whoever took Nancy Guthrie has either never been arrested for a qualifying offense or has somehow completely evaded law enforcement throughout his entire life. On February 16th, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos made a formal announcement addressing rampant speculation on social media. To be absolutely clear, the sheriff stated, the Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, has been completely cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative since the beginning. Investigators examined their phones, their computers, their vehicles, and their homes. Every member of Nancy's immediate family was thoroughly investigated and definitively eliminated as a suspect. Sheriff Nanos was responding to what he called armchair detectives on social media, who had wildly and irresponsibly speculated about family involvement without any evidence whatsoever. Savannah Guthrie released another video statement the same day, speaking directly to whoever has her mother or knows where she is. The Today Show host made what may be her final public appeal. "It's never too late," Savannah said, her voice breaking. "And you're not lost or alone. It is never too late to do the right thing. We are here, we believe, and we believe in the essential goodness of every human being." It was the plea of a daughter who has spent more than 2 weeks not knowing if her mother is alive or dead, not knowing if she will ever see her again, not knowing if her mother is suffering or terrified or calling out for help that will never come. As of today, February 18th, 2026, Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 17 days. She is 84 years old. She has a pacemaker. She requires daily cardiac medication to survive. Without that medication, her condition could rapidly become fatal. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has confirmed they are working directly with the manufacturer of Nancy's pacemaker in an attempt to locate the device through its wireless signals. But the pacemaker stopped syncing with her Apple devices at approximately 2:00 a.m. on the night she disappeared. Investigators have not detected any signal from the device since that moment. There are no confirmed suspects in custody. There have been no arrests. There is no proof of life. The masked man in the doorbell footage remains completely unidentified. The DNA recovered from the gloves belongs to someone not in any federal criminal database. The ransom notes may or may not have come from the actual abductor. The claim that Nancy was seen alive in Mexico 5 days ago remains entirely unverified. Every theory is still in play. Every lead is still being actively pursued, and every hour that passes makes the outcome more uncertain and more grim. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department tip line immediately at 523-50-140-900 or the FBI tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI. The reward is $100,000. And somewhere right now, whether in Arizona or Mexico or somewhere else entirely, an 84-year-old woman is waiting, and time is running out.